Hello everyone, warm welcome to Super Coaching Regulatory Bodies YouTube channel by Testbook. My name is Madhav Sir. I welcome you all in a very important session where we are going to discuss all the important updates related to RBI. As you all know, if you're preparing for regulatory bodies, that could be RBI, NABARD, SEBI, SIDBI, PFRDA, or any other examination, remember, this session is a must-watch session every Wednesday at 6 p.m. where we discuss the important RBI updates, which include the RBI notifications, RBI press release, RBI circulars, even we discuss the RBI bulletin. So before we start the discussion, I would request everyone quickly join the session and along with me copy the link of this session. We all will collectively share the link of this session with our friends, family members so that they can join this session and enjoy the benefit of this particular session, which will help them to clear their upcoming examination. So let's get started, guys. Before I start the discussion, I want you to quickly copy the link of this session, share it with your friends so that more and more students can join us live. I'm also doing the same. You too do the same so that we can begin the discussion without any further delay. Quickly. Chaliye. So, okay. I guess everything is fine now. Chalo ji, let's begin the discussion. So today I have a very important area which we are going to discuss related to the RBI updates. But before I start with the discussion, I have an important update to make that not only on Wednesday, you need to join our YouTube channel every day, Monday to Friday at 6 p.m. where we discuss the weekly updates, and these weekly updates include PIB weekly updates. Secondly, we have finance updates. Then we have RBI updates. Moving forward, we have important schemes. Then we have ESI, current affairs, and many other important sessions from Monday to Saturday, which you need to join at 6 p.m. If you are joining this session, guys, on regular basis, trust me, you will be in a position to answer most of the questions related to your examination. So let's get started. So today's discussion is on a very important aspect, and the aspect is related to directions of central counterparties. Now, before I start the discussion that what is basically the directions announced by RBI related to the central counterparties, my first question will be to everyone out there who are listening to me, who are present in this particular session. And the question is very simple. The question says, what do you understand? The question says, what do you understand by the term? What do you understand by the term central counterparties? Then we will be discussing what is basically the directions which have been introduced. We will be talking about the applicability. We'll talk about the definitions. Then we'll talk about along with definitions, we'll talk about the governance which has been announced, composition related, all those areas will be discussed one by one. But firstly, I'll start my discussion with the first point, that is central counterparty. I'll start the discussion from here. What is central counterparty? Remember that central counter, first I'll read it for you. You read it with me along and then I'll explain you. Central counterparty means a system provider who by a way of novation interposes between system participants in an transaction admitted for settlement, thereby becoming the buyer to every seller and seller to every buyer for the purpose of effecting settlements of their transactions. So what does it basically means? So central counterparty, or I would say the central counterparty, how we explain this particular term. Guys, I'm pretty sure that you are enjoying n number of digital transactions these days, and when you enjoyed n number of digital transactions these days, you come across with a term that is phone pay, Google Pay. So these are basically the system participants which allows you to perform, which allows you to come up, which allows you to perform, which allows you to come up with n number of day-to-day transactions, day-to-day operations. But when I talk about central counterparty, I would say it is a financial market infrastructure which act as an intermediary between the parties which are involved in financial transactions. So it acts as a mediator between the parties which are involved in the transaction, which we call it as financial transaction. What is a basically financial transaction? The transaction which involve sale and purchase of financial instruments. So remember that CCP, they act as buyer to every seller and they act as seller to every buyer, taking on the risk of default between the two parties. So we have two parties involved, and in that particular two parties, central counterparties, these are the financial intermediaries which become buyer to the seller. So this is the seller who wants to sell the financial instrument. So these financial instruments will be purchased by CCP and it will become seller to the buyer. So they will be selling these financial instruments to the buyer. So they become buyer to every seller and they become seller to every buyer, which basically means CCP will act as a mediator. Now, what is the benefit of this particular mediator, or how this mediator is going to benefit you and me? So the reason is CCPs, they are essential to the financial system because they manage counterparty risk and they are a link between multiple financial institutions. So first benefit is they will be managing the counterparty risk. Counterparty risk means if in a particular transactions where we have two parties involved, if any one of the party, either A or B, do not fulfill or do not obligate the contract, do not fulfill the obligations which are mentioned in the particular contract, then in that particular case, CCP is going to overcome, or CCP is going to handle or observe the counterparty risk. So in order to avoid any kind of counterparty risk when you are involved in a transaction, in that particular case, CCP is going to play a really very important role. Secondly, if I talk about the services, so CCP provides clearing and settlement services for trades in security options, derivatives, and foreign exchange. So it provides what all services? So it provides clearing services as well as settlement services. It provides clearing services as well as settlement services related to what? So related to the transactions involving securities, transaction involving options, or I would write derivatives, it could be the same, and even it is responsible for the settlement in terms of forex transaction, that is foreign exchange. Forex transaction, that is foreign exchange. Got it? Moving on to the next point. The next point is, so this organization or this institute helps in mitigating or managing the risk which is termed as counterparty risk. And how it manages the risk? Because it uses a variety of method to manage the risk, including requiring collateral deposits. It includes the requirement of collateral deposits. It also monitors the credit worthiness, and even it provides the guarantee funds. These CCPs, they are highly regulated institutions that are subject to transparent and I would say effective regulations and oversights, which are very important with respect to the day-to-day transactions related to the financial settlements. Is it clear, everyone? So I hope the basic part is clear. What is central counterparty? Now let's start our discussion with the first point. So recently in the RBI notification, the provision of these directions will be applied. So they have come up with the directions related to central counterparties. First point is these directions are going to be applicable on. So these directions are going to be applicable on domestic central counterparty authorized to operate in India under Payment and Settlement System Act 2007, and even the foreign counterparties which are recognized by RBI under the Payment and Settlement System Act for their operation, including clearing and settlement in India. So in short, all the central counterparties, whether they are domestic, which are operating in the country, or they are foreign counterparties, but they are allowed by RBI. First condition is they must be allowed by RBI, and once they are allowed by RBI, they all will be covered under the directions which are given by RBI recently. Second point is, if I talk about the definition, if I say Payment and Settlement System Act, whenever I will be using the word act, that means I'm referring to the Payment and Settlement System Act. Authorized central counterparty means the CCP to whom certificate of authorization is issued by RBI. In short, you can say the CCP which is regulated by RBI and the license or authorization or permission is given by RBI to operate in the country. Third point, whenever I use a word company, I'm talking about an organization which is registered under the Companies Act 2013, and control shall include the right to appoint majority of directors or control the management. So whenever we talk about, or I'll use a word control, that means I'm referring to the term that is management. I've already explained what is central counterparty. Then I will be using a word board. Board basically means the board of directors of CCP. Domestic central counterparty means incorporated in India and authorized by RBI under the Act. And foreign counterparties means which are incorporated outside India, but they are allowed by RBI to operate in India. They are termed as foreign counterparties. Very important. So how you define recognized central counterparty? So recognized central counterparty means foreign central counterparty that is authorized by RBI under the Act for carrying out its operation in India. So we'll not use only foreign central counterparty word. We must use a word that is recognized central counterparties which are operating in India once they are authorized by RBI to operate in the country. Moving on to the next point. The next is senior management, and the last part is the users, which I'm going to define in today's session. So let's get started. So the directions on the governance for domestic central counterparties authorized to operate in India by the RBI. First point is governance provides the process through which an organization sets its objective. So this governance which we are talking about, the directions which we are talking about, it says that the governance provides the process through which an organization sets its objectives as well as determines the means for achieving the objectives and monitor performance against the objectives. So the board principles underlying governance of domestic CCP are prescribed. So if I talk about the composition of the board as defined by RBI, the composition of CCP include, first one, sir, it should include nominee directors, independent directors, managing directors, and other directors as nominated or as notified by RBI from time to time. If I talk about the composition, second point under the composition is the board shall have the minimum number of directors as specified in the Companies Act 2013. Now I have a question for you. What is the minimum number of directors in a particular company which are defined under Companies Act 2013? Any idea, guys? Any idea, guys? Can you define minimum number of directors in Companies Act 2013? So the minimum number of directors in the Companies Act 2013 is, in case of public company, minimum number of directors is 3. In case of private limited company, minimum number of directors is 2, and in case of one person company, the minimum number of directors, as the name suggests, is going to be 1. So the same criteria is need to be followed. The same criteria is need to be followed by CCPs as well. The same criteria is need to be followed by CCP as well. Then the next point is, sir, if I talk about the independent directors, or I would say the minimum independent directors. So what could be the minimum number of independent directors? Sir, in listed company, at least 1/3 of the total number of directors must be independent. Any fraction of 1/3 is round off up to 1. Is it clear, everyone? So what is the criteria over here? So in case of independent director in a public company, 1/3 of the total number of directors should be independent directors. Now, do you know what is independent director? Guys, do you know what is independent director? Or how we define the independent director? Any idea, guys? And in case of unlisted company, that is private limited company, minimum number of directors is need to be 2. Minimum number of directors is need to be 2. But if I say, what are the conditions? If the paid up share capital is greater than 10 crores, if turnover is greater than 100 crores, and if the total of all outstanding loans, debentures and deposit is greater than 50 crores, then these conditions are applicable on private limited company. But my question is how you define independent directors. Guys, how you define independent directors? Any idea? Independent director is basically a non-executive director who is free from any conflict of interest, and he is chosen on the basis of his experience and integrity rather than on the basis of his shareholding. So that is basically termed as what? So that is basically termed as independent director. What is nominee director? So nominee director means the director nominated by any shareholder according to the article of association of CCP or any financial institutions under the provision given by law. So we can have nominee director. There could be a question, as per the latest direction, in central counterparties, board of directors include nominee directors. But the question is, who nominates these directors? Government of India? No, sir. The nomination is done by whom? So the nomination is done by the shareholders. Last is the managing director. So managing director shall be an ex officio director of the board and shall not be included in either the category of independent or nominee director. So managing director will be the part of one of the director on the board, but he or she must not be included in the category of independent director or nominee director. This is going to be the composition. The last point is the number of independent directors on the board and committee should be at least equal to the number of nominee directors. In case of equality of votes, chairperson of the board or committee shall have the second or casting vote. What is this? Sir, we have decided about the independent directors, but there is a condition that the number of independent directors should be equal to the nominee director, at least should be equal to the nominee director. And in case of tie of votes, then one extra vote will be casted by the chairperson of the board of directors, and the extra vote which is going to be casted by the chairperson will not be as a director, because he has already casted a vote as a director. Now he will be casting an extra vote, not as a director, rather as a chairperson, in order to overcome the current situation, in order to overcome the current, I would say, issue of tie. So this is going to be the composition. Last point is, no foreign institutional investors shall have any representation in the board, and the quorum of a meeting of board of directors shall have 1/3 of its total strength or 3 directors, whichever is high. At least half of the directors shall attend the meetings of the board shall be independent directors. So if CCP is holding a meeting of board of directors, the meeting of board of directors will be counted a valid meet if 1/3 of the total directors are involved, if 1/3 of the total directors are present, and out of the present directors, half of the directors should be independent directors. Then only we will count the meeting to be a legal meeting or to be a valid meet. So these are the few points related to the composition. Direct questions are asked on the basis of these areas. You can expect the question again in the examination. First is composition, which include nominee director, independent director, managing director. Then we have minimum number of directors is going to be 3 to 1. Independent is 1/3 or 2, but in case of private limited, it's 2 if the turnover is greater than 100 crores, if the loan or outstanding liability is greater than 50 crores, and if the paid up capital is greater than 10 crores. Nominee directors are nominated by shareholders. Independent managing director should not be a nominee director or independent director. The number of independent directors should be at least equal to the nominee director, and in case of tie, one extra vote will be casted by the chairperson itself. One extra vote will be casted by the chairperson itself. Then when we say that the meeting is legally counted or the meeting is legally happened, so we say that meeting is legally done if out of total board of directors, at least 1/3 of the board of directors are present, and out of the present directors, half of the present should be independent directors. Moving on to the second part. The second part under the direction is roles and responsibilities of the board. So board will establish clear strategy for CCP, ensure effective monitoring of senior management, establishing and overseeing the risk management function, overseeing the internal control functions, and ensuring the compliance with all the supervisory and oversight requirements as given by RBI. Establishing appropriate compensation policies, ensure consideration of financial stability, and provide accountability to the owners, participants, and the other relevant stakeholders, and finally ensure fair and transparent conduct of CCP. So these are the important functions which are going to be performed by the board of directors. So as per the current news, if we talk about the news related to central counterparty, there were directions given. There were in total 8 sections. Out of those 8 sections, I have shortlisted 2 sections for you. First one is composition of board of directors. Second point is the roles and responsibilities of board of directors, which are important. Plus the part which is important is what is central counterparty, how it is buyer to every seller and seller to every buyer. That part is important. How it is mitigating the counterparty risk, that is important. And it is regulated under which organization? Then your answer is it is regulated under RBI. If you are remembering, if you are in a position to memorize these areas, trust me guys, you will be in a position to answer these questions or answer all the questions which can be framed out of this particular topic in the examination. If you want to understand more, or if you want to have more insights related to your financial topics, then I would request you do join our Lakshya batch, which is a subscription model where we will be providing you access to foundation batch, access to revision batch, even will provide you access to mock test for phase 1, phase 2, will provide you with mock interviews, will provide you with one-to-one mentorship programs. And trust me, if you're joining this particular session, you will be in a position to clear this examination in the very first go. If you want to download the PDF, you can download the PDF of this session from my given Telegram link. I hope the point is clear. I will be catching you all in the upcoming sessions to go. Do download this PDF, read it once or twice, and once you have read it once or twice, trust me, if any question will be asked in the examination, you will be in a position to answer it for sure. Thank you so much for joining. Good luck. God bless you all.